Well, good evening, and welcome to the Cumberland County Commissioners' meeting of August 8th of 2022. I call this meeting to order. Those of you who would like to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, will you please stand?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members of the public will be invited to comment on any topic not on the agenda or during citizens' discussion for no more than 5 minutes. If you are here to speak about an item appearing on tonight's agenda, well, please wait until the item comes up on the agenda, where you will have no more than 5 minutes, to speak on the item. Okay, moving on. The next item, approval of the minutes for the July 11th, 2022.
Second.
Do we have any discussion on the minutes? I call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
The informational presentations and reports. Well, Jim, I'm going to turn that over to you.
Thank you. As you're aware, each year the Cumberland County Extension Association comes before us and presents their budget that they're requesting for consideration of by the county commissioners. It's a presentation typically takes place in July and August of a given year, and then the commissioners then refer it to the budget committee for it to be baked into the budget. So this evening we have a representative from the Extension Service that will run through their budget request and their annual budget for the upcoming year. So I'd like to invite Kate up to present. And you can go right to the podium if you like, or if you got handouts, that's great too.
Yeah, we have handouts, primarily the application, which you hopefully already have.
Yeah.
Oh, we can hand it out again.
Nope, they have the application.
Okay.
Thank you.
Rather than disassemble it. Then we have additional reading invitation and a little one-pager that I created for. You're welcome. Thank you. So we appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. So hello, I'm Kate McCarty from University of Maine Cooperative Extension. I'm the food systems professional, which means that I typically teach food preservation workshops, and I manage the Master Food Preserver volunteers. We have about 60 volunteers statewide. And I have been filling in the role of the financial responsibilities as that position. Sarah Conant, who has come to meetings previous, has left Extension in February. So I've been filling in since then. So we have requested our funds from Cumberland County government of $149,255,000 this year. The bulk of that request is our salary line. So much like many other industries during COVID, we were affected by some staff vacancies and then people leaving for other positions and contract negotiated raises. So this salary line item is about $111,000, and that pays for 3 administrative support staff, 2 of whom are currently working full-time. The 3rd individual we are searching to hire right now, and that is a 75% position, so it's 32 hours a week. And so their 3 salaries together make up the bulk of that item. And then the rest of the line items together are our rent, which is subsidized by the University of Maine. They pay half. Typically the funds from the county are used to pay the other half. And in the past, I understand the janitorial services has been a question because it is high. So in years past, it has been $8,500. This is Teresa Kelly, our treasurer. Hi, Teresa. Hello. Welcome. Thank you. So it's been $8,500 for the year. And we were informed due to inflation and cost of materials that is going up to an additional $200 a month. So it's $1,100 a month now. So the total cost for the year is over $13,000. So we are looking to rebid that service. The contract we have with them expires in October. So we have a few more months at that higher rate. And then we'll look to find a service that is less expensive for that cost. And then the rest are fairly minor fixed costs around expenses in the office. So the funding for your budget pays for equipment, printers, computers, et cetera, paper, and some program funds. And that, I believe, is it. So, Teresa, do you have anything to add since you just arrived? I know you missed what I said, but.
I'm sure you would really.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate your support. So with that, we thank you for your consideration. You have a summary, of course, the work we do here in the county, so I will not reiterate that, but I welcome your questions. Yes, sir.
So, how many active 4-H clubs are in Cumberland County?
There are 300 volunteers, but I'm not sure the number of clubs.
So you don't know which towns are being serviced and how many students are involved in clubs?
I don't off the top of my head.
But we do have that information.
Yes.
We can get it to you very quickly.
Yeah.
Very
I
good.
wanted to say that the 4-H coordinator for Cumberland County, in partnership with the Oxford County 4-H coordinator, have just been given a national award for the program that they developed this year.
Great.
So I'm very grateful for it. Are there any other questions? Commissioner Gordon, I know you must have, no? Jim?
I just wonder if there's a thumbnail description of what you might have had to retrench on during the pandemic that now is reopening, or is there any of that going on?
Yeah, I would say overall in 2020 and into 2021, we were primarily delivering online learning. So we were reaching the Master Gardener program, moved online to training. Our food preservation efforts were webinar only, and then the 4-H Club was doing a Learn at Home series to support kids who are obviously schooling at home. And then we had several staff vacancies in the administrative roles that we did not see the need to refill because we were all working from home and the administrative load was lessened as far as in-office support. So we had one position that was vacant for a year and a half. So from the individual left pre-COVID, and then we rehired for that position in August 2021. So it's been just a year since that role has been refilled. And then we've moved back into our our in-person programs. So through the University of Maine, we don't have any COVID restrictions around in-person programming. So we've been delivering our hands-on workshops and club meetings and, farm and gardening workshops as well. So I would say there aren't any restrictions as far as programming. It's going to full steam ahead in 2022, the summer of 22.
Also, the investment that the team made in all of these online learning opportunities is still there and can be used over and over and over again.
Those pixels don't deteriorate that much, right?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. But it's also materials that everybody can use. It's not just for the folks in the office, but it's available via the website to everybody.
And I don't want to fight my way through your budget here tonight, but it looks like it's something like a 10-to-1 relationship between what the university provides and what the county is paying for, although some of I see a prorated project management payment or allocation that might be a little hard to value, but someday the finance committee will probably ask you to explain that, so that's, so thank you. That's all I have.
I need to say, as a citizen of Cumberland County, just how very proud I am of this organization. They have done amazing work. their investment is paying off for us in so many, in the agricultural sector in particular. And also, did you mention the annual meeting?
You all have an invitation to our annual meeting, September 7th.
And we look forward to seeing as many of you as we possibly can. And it's at the beautiful Tidewater Gardens, demonstration gardens, and you will see quite a display.
And there will be food.
Can I ask one other thing?
Sure.
If you happen to know, and maybe should have bothered to call the Department of Agriculture ahead of time, we should have. At certain times, we've been aware of the growth rate in agriculture in Cumberland County. Do you guys still track that? And do you remember what recent numbers are?
Hmm.
No, I don't. And what we can certainly get to, what
Mhm.
Jason Lilly would have, we have a
Mhm.
full-time agricultural focus.
Right, yeah.
And we can ask him to get you that data.
That'd be great. It was frankly shockingly high when we heard it before. You know, it was running like compounded 8% a year or something like that, which
I live
seemed,
in Pownell, which is not a big town, and there are 3 new farms.
Oh.
Wonderful.
I noticed there was a 0.9 of an acre farm in Falmouth that was busily plowing away, or whatever you do with 9/10 of an acre at one point, so that, but it seems like it's all over the place, and there's a lot of small farms now.
If you have any pay, hold on to it.
Yeah.
This drought is really killing us. So I'd like to talk to you about what you're doing about the weather.
Thank you all.
If there's no other more questions? Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you again for your time.
Okay, moving on, comments from the public. Do we have anyone here from the public? Seeing none, we can move on. The consent agenda. So,
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
do we have any discussion? Does anybody want to report anything, or are we all set? Okay, seeing none, to approve with the items for 22-087 to 22-092. I call for vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
So passed. Okay, is the operable business, I am going to turn this over to you, Jim, and to see.
All right, thank you. This item is coming back before you. This is the item that you first heard back in June, and it was the application concerning Cumberland County adult education. Subsequently, since June, the commissioners had a workshop to learn more about what adult education looks like here in Cumberland County. The commissioners heard that it's just not about Portland Adult Ed, which is the engine of adult ed, or the largest group of the Cumberland County Adult Ed Consortium. But we also learned that there were many adult ed units on the periphery of Greater Portland, and some in Greater Portland, that are doing wonderful jobs on different levels of capacity and student enrollment. I won't get into my memo that I wrote about this, and if I can figure out how I just flip my, there we go. I did spend a little bit of time just brainstorming around this request. And I thought it would be beneficial for the commissioners to kind of see how this request applies to the commissioners' priorities and criteria, and how it applies to the eligibility of uses within the final rule handed down by Treasury that we live by in allocating funds. And I'll just make mention that the commissioners made job training a number 3 priority. And this was largely on the number of times that we heard that theme come up during our public process back, I think it was probably May, June, July of 2021. And that job training was, we heard a lot about housing and homelessness, so that took the number 1 spot. We heard a lot about behavioral and mental health, that took the number 2 spot. So, and then we heard a lot about job training and the need to job train and job train new Americans so that they can enter the workforce. And that took the number 3 spot. And so I want to remind the commissioners of that. I also know that when it comes to job training, it kind of rubs a criteria that the commissioners had, and that was not to fund positions. Funding positions, we had a lot of dialogue about, based on the sheer fact that when positions are funded, that means there's a human element behind the dollar. And when the dollar dries up, that human element can possibly stay on under another funding mechanism, or it dries up and that person is reduced in hours or laid off entirely. And I believe the commissioners have expressed some past dealings in that the fingers have been pointed at Cumberland County for the layoffs that have occurred because of the funding drying up. I would ask that this was I think, a different way of looking at things when it comes to funding positions. Because when you're dealing with job training, you're dealing with either purchasing equipment or supplies. In this particular case, I don't believe we received any requests for purchasing equipment, training equipment, or anything like that. There was a small line item for supplies, books, and other types of material. But largely, it takes a human body to train or teach a class. And so if we're going to have priority number 3, job training, I think we need to look through a different lens on how that job training is accomplished. And it rubs against the criteria of not funding a human or staffing. So I just want to bring that out to the commissioners. The funding of adult education lines up perfectly with the data that we need to submit to the Department of Treasury. The Department of Treasury is looking for us to take care of, and I'll refer to my memo here. They're looking for us to take care of those that have been impacted by the pandemic, those who are low income, those who have fallen through the cracks. And so that's the targeted population that we should be earmarking our opera funds on. And that is, in a sense, the population that Cumberland County Adult Ed serves on a year-to-year basis. We have a fantastic opportunity through helping the adult ed system add capacity across Cumberland County's region. We've heard from them that they are there to train up the individuals, whether they're the individuals that have fallen through the cracks, like there have been documented many times across Maine and the nation that going to Zoom in the high school setting was not the best thing for high school students. And there have been a lot of kids that dropped off. And having a high school kid myself, and I think I made mention to what we struggled with just keeping my son focused the first year. If you don't have that parent at the house watching over them, these kids fell through, and they may have not graduated last year or this year, and they may be needing to seek the services of the Cumberland County Adult Ed to get that GED or that equivalent, so that they can take advantage of the opportunity in the community college campus that we have right here in South Pole, and that is free tuition. And so if we can get as many people, and we've heard that they're seeing an increase in students, not only here in Portland, but in all their education locations. If we can get as many people through and get them prepared to go to the next step in community college, that's going to give them an opportunity that at no time that I can remember, community college was free. And that's going to be a huge jump start. And that jump start's not only going to help them, but it's going to help our employers within our region. It's going to help their families because they're going to be able to now provide, and it's ultimately going to help our economy prosper. And so we need to jump on the backs of all these individuals that are underemployed right now and get them trained up. And one way of doing that is through Cumberland County Adult Ed. And so I think you're hearing my overwhelming support of moving this through first reading this evening, getting it to second reading in September. And my request is for the commissioners to look at the $500,000 threshold for funding of this application. So I'll be quiet there. I know we do have some representation from Adult Ed here, as well as Sandy's here to help us go through this process, and I'll be happy to expand on my beliefs if the commissioners would like any further questions answered. Thank you.
Commissioner Cloutier.
I just request, Madam Chair, if you would be good enough to do it, or have someone do it for the benefit of the people that are here and are interested in this, to explain the first reading, second reading process, and how that now means that we'll have a proceeding this evening of some kind, and then the actual decision gets made next month, just so they understand.
Who is best qualified to explain with the readings?
Well, I think Commissioner Cloutier did
Oh,
just a
okay.
good job at it.
There you
First,
go, Jeff.
first reading is opening it up to seeking public comment, and if all goes well, you move the item to second reading and final action come September. And I believe I think we've all agreed that September 19th would be our alternative date for our meeting in September.
Do we have any other commission or would like to speak before I open it up to the people that,
Are we speaking first or are they speaking?
does it matter?
I would kick it over to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll kick it over there. Does anybody up there, would they like to speak?
Yeah, sure.
State your name and.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. I'm Peter Wagner. I'm a resident of Freeport, and I'm the director of the Community Programs Office for RSU 5, which is the school district that is comprised of Durham, Freeport, and Pownell. Our office, along with recreation, enrichment, and early childhood programming, we also provide instruction to adult learners. I usually try to steer clear of plagiarizing myself, but we were here recently at another meeting as part of the public comments, and I guess we were so riveting that we were invited back to be a part of the agenda. So I will go through my statement again, which I've amended slightly based on some changes in the landscape. But thank you so much for your thoughts about the number of ways that adult ed can really help individuals across the state of Maine who need our services. You identified a number of ways that we can do that with job training, language instruction, high-set equivalency studies, and I'm here to tell a little bit of a story about what's happening in Freeport and RSU 5 that is about English instruction to our new Mainer population. The adult education program in Freeport and RSU 5, at least for the last 10 or more years, has been classified as an extra small program. In practical terms, that means we average just a small handful of students at any given time. In the fall and early winter of 2021-22, we were working with 2 high-set learners and 8 English learners. As had been the case for a number of years, we employed exactly 1 high-set instructor and 1 English instructor to serve these students. It's always the case with adult education in Freeport that we're unable to predict the comings and goings of our students. We don't observe a tidy school year from September to June, as the schools do, but rather operate year-round. Students may join our program at any time. Sometimes it's weeks between adding learners, and other times we'll have several new ones in a month. In only the rarest of occasions, adding more than one student at a time is nothing more than a coincidence of timing. With the new year, there was a sea change when approximately 35 new Mainer families moved into the Casco Bay Inn in Freeport. These new Mainer families from Angola and the Congo became Freeport residents and were in need of immediate assistance. As part of a consortium of local agencies providing a range of critical services, we assumed responsibility for getting the adults started on the path of English language acquisition. Suddenly, our quiet, extra small program grew from 8 learners to nearly 50. As quickly as possible, we hired a second instructor so that we could split these new Mainers into 0 level and higher beginner sections. It didn't take long after then to realize that this large group required a third instructor, so we began a search to fill that need. Before we had a chance to fill the new position, more big news arrived. 2 additional hotels, Best Western properties within sight of each other on either side of the Cousins River, which separates Freeport and Yarmouth, would also be filled with new Mainers in need of English instruction. In the span of just a few weeks, our demand for ESOL classes went from 8 intermediate students to more than 50 to approximately 120, with the vast majority of them being 0 level beginner learners. As the springtime moved on, we hired our 3rd, and then our 4th, and then our 5th English instructor. We purchased a batch of 100 textbooks along with 5 teachers' editions for around $5,000, which is a big expenditure for our office, especially in adult education. With 5 instructors at 2 locations, we're now offering 10 sections of English for our new Mainers. In anticipation of as many as 40 new families that are anticipated to arrive in Freeport and Yarmouth, we've invested in another batch of 100 textbooks. We hired an adult ed intern for the summer months to try and help us manage student intake sessions, CASAS testing, and class attendance data, which is a monumental task with a language barrier with our new Mainers and the limited documentation that they come with to be able to identify for certain who these people are and how we can register them. With these expenditures, we've been weighing the merits of the textbooks that our students clearly love versus the flexibility but incredible expense of tablets or other devices to deliver online instruction. Our payroll and materials expenses have exploded in this 6-month or 7-month period. The 2 factors that make these changes so notable are, 1, we have no control over the flow of new Mainers coming into our area, and 2, that because these new Mainers are asylum seekers and not refugees, there's not a governmental umbrella program that accommodates for the invaluable services such as English instruction that this group so desperately needs. They deserve to be given the tools to acclimate to their new home and to one day become productive and participatory members of the workforce and our communities. It's worth mentioning that our English classroom at the Muddy Rudder restaurant was visited this summer by Eileen Sullivan, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist for the New York Times. Eileen has also toured the Transitional Holding Center in Texas, which is the first stop in America for many of our asylum seekers. She's been to Washington, D.C., to which many have been bused once they leave Texas, and then on to Maine to find out how, without financial backing from a parent governmental agency, small communities like ours are stepping up to provide so much for these hopeful new Americans. I actually traded email with Eileen this week, and she's anticipating that sometime around Labor Day or maybe just after that, that her story may be published. It's in the editing process now. What's happening right now in America, and specifically right here in small-town Cumberland County, is a big deal. Programs like the one I oversee are doing an incredibly heavy lift to serve this new population that is settling in our area. Everyone on our team, from the superintendent to the instructors to our office staff, are incredibly proud of how quickly and thoroughly we've been able to ramp up our operations to accommodate these new Mainers. But on the financial side, we've got grave concerns about how we'll weather this first major spike in population, one which didn't land until the FY23 budget season had already passed. The ARPA funding for which the Cumberland County Adult Ed Hub 8 is applying could very well mean the difference between helping these new Mainers succeed and leaving them to fend for themselves. We owe it to them to help them on their way and to help them acquire the language skills necessary to be productive Americans and good neighbors for years to come. I respectfully ask that the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners grant our request for funding so that all of us working in the Hub may continue serving a wide range of adult learners, and in the case of the Freeport area, this wonderful group of new Mainers in particular. Thank you. Here with me this evening also is Tom Nash, who is one of my hub mates from Wyndham Adult Education.
Thank you, Peter. and I know you've heard from me, this is the third time now, so I'm going to try not to repeat myself, but there was a PowerPoint that was made available the last time, and you have that in your packet, and I can briefly address some points on that. But I think one of the concerns you had was that, where does the funding come to support our programs? We have a local share, which is local appropriation. We get state subsidy. Those combined are about $4,300,000 to all the communities served in Cumberland County. We also get federal dollars to serve basic needs instruction, whether it's literacy or numeracy, as well as English language instruction. And we also get money for what's called Maine College and Career Access. So it helped it, for those students, those high school students that kind of decided that Zoom classes weren't for them and they drop out, or they're looking for another option, there's a skills gap there. So they still need to have some basic instruction in so that they can be prepared to be successful at the college level. We also had some money from the United Way grant and other funds that are available. Adult Ed has traditionally relied upon grant funds to get the job done. In Wyndham, I've been there as a director for 17 years. When I first got there, we had a small program. We were able to leverage grant funds and part-time positions to show the need and collect the data that then proved to the district that there was a greater need that then they could support locally. So when we say that we hire part-time teachers, is what we do. We have part-time staff, the majority of our programs. And the teachers that take those jobs understand that. And then as the needs fluctuate and needs change, then the teachers can adjust as well with that. I'd say the majority of them are not looking for full-time positions. They're looking for part-time positions to augment their family income or to get some additional funds to then put back into the community. So I think I want to say that we're used to that in adult ed. But what we're really trying to do is to kind of fill the skills gap for those English language learners, whether they're immigrants or they're students, young adults or older adults in our communities. There's a skills gap. And what we see as our role is kind of like the entryway, the on-ramp onto their career pathway. Their basic skills in literacy or numeracy may not be at a point where they can be successful in the world of work, so we get them. And you might not think of that as workforce training, but it is. It gets them prepared so they're ready to go into certificate programs at the local community college or some other training program. It's not just 2-year or 4-year colleges. Sometimes it's a 3-month or a 6-month or a 9-month certificate program as well. But they need to get their skills up to a level where they're going to be successful. And that's where we come in to fill that need. So I just wanted to, again, reinforce that we've been doing this on a shoestring for years, and we do a great job on a shoestring. So we're just asking for some extra pairs of shoes to kind of get us through, get us on that path, get us on that road. And there's students there waiting for us to serve them. And we'll do the best we can with the funds that are available to us. So we appreciate your consideration for this additional funding. We do feel that with the budget that's been provided to you, that we have Portland Adult Ed does provide that oversight, the data collection, the coordination aspect for not this potential grant, but for all of our grants. They have the capacity to do that. And we as the smaller programs appreciate that because we can lean on them. And they're the ones, again, that can collect that data to give you what you need to bring forward to whoever you have to, to answer to in terms of the funding. So thank you for your time again. Appreciate your consideration, and we're here for any questions if you have them.
Thank you very much for doing that. Does anybody have anything? Do you have anything?
Thank you.
The position paper in your packet was just me kind of doing an overview of what we've asked for questions. Staff had asked the hub question and they provided answers to me, which were really all the questions you had directed me to ask them at our initial meeting back in June when we had tabled the application originally. So those are all included, which kind of outline what the 500,000 would go towards, how they would distribute that, which is really just to those hubs that have the greatest need, really, is how that will work out from them. So they, as a group, say, okay, who needs it right now? Which, obviously, Freeport, I think, and South Portland are two of the major groups that need that help. And how they typically do it, and correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but you have kind of a volunteer right now in place that shifts from hub to hub to kind of meet that or backfill that need. And so that would be that same process of whomever's hired will come in and backfill the need wherever that might be at a whatever location.
Yeah, our hopes are to have someone that can, that can move from program to program. You hire a full-time person who can, can then move where the need is greatest. Freeport, South Portland, well, then it might also then be, we've got a fluctuation. We had, in Wyndham, we had 10 students come from Ecuador. They needed to have basic skills instruction. They work for a painting company in Portland. So they needed to be trained in basic skills. So we took them on, we took it on. But also, this is going to provide, over 4,500 hours of instruction and advising. That's a lot. I think we can get a big bang for our buck with that, with those number of hours. Yeah.
And as Jim had previously mentioned, this definitely touches on the learning loss and educational disparities that Treasury is looking to have counties and municipalities fund, and towards people that have been impacted or disproportionately impacted. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit into the slide later on during the workshop as to what they've defined that as. But essentially, anyone that they would be working with are folks that are impacted, that Treasury is presumed to be eligible for services because of the data that's been collected, specifically around learning loss. And I think the key component that I like hearing from this group is the in-person learning. And Jim had touched on that too, that Zoom just didn't work for a lot of students. And I don't know about you guys, but I tried to take a math class in college online. I could not do it. I had to cancel and go in because I can't do math on the computer. I have to have it in pen and paper. And so I think just different learning styles for different people make that difference. And being in person helps, I think, a lot when it comes to education. And then my kid's only in first grade or going into first grade now. But I will say that whole system, it's really hard to communicate with teachers and just in general. Since COVID, things have gone really south with teachers and communication and learning. It's been really challenging, even for us. And I'm pretty vocal and active with my school and community, so.
During COVID, a lot of our programs maintained both in-person and online learning because we knew we had students who could not do it online. We just couldn't. They didn't have either the technology, the patience, the wherewithal, it wasn't their learning style. So we've been maintaining both levels we call hybrid learning ever since April of 2020. And we'll continue to offer those other, those online options for those that may have barriers to participation. They may have childcare issues. They may have transportation issues, work issues. So if they can take a class at 6 o'clock at night from home, they will. But we still have, again, the in-person stuff is really important to us to make sure we get that connection, that personal connection. Thank you.
Okay. We don't have any other questions?
Procedurally, we don't need a vote because it's the first reading.
Right.
Or do you need endorsement?
I would probably take a vote to pass first reading and set September 19th for second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Commissioner Gorden.
I hear and understand the need that's being suggested here for adult education. On the other hand, I think something that we have to realize is that educational instruction is a function of municipalities and state government by statute, not counties. Not counties. And whereas APRA funds are allowed to do that, most counties throughout the United States do have that requirement. This state doesn't. So I don't support that. On the other hand, if we were to do something with capital, I could see that because it's not the instruction.
May I add something? Is that okay if I add something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Adult education is not part of the essential programs and services, so we don't have to be funded. That's the bottom line. Districts decide to do that on their own. Some communities do not have adult education program. So K-12, I see that, but we've been fighting that battle as well all along, is that we are not considered an essential program and service. So we always have to find other sources of funding. We do get local funding too, but yes, thank you.
Mr. Cloutier.
I have always had the same line of thinking as Commissioner Gordon on this, but I'll have to say that I was always troubled by it because the connection to needy people in necessitous circumstances here affected by the pandemic was always quite clear to me. And I think what's tipped me over the edge here is that our preset priorities, as the manager actually pointed out in a memorandum that we've received, and as he discussed a little bit tonight, included job work and training that we have not yet successfully accomplished. And this is a way to do it. I almost had to say to our friends from Freeport, welcome to Portland 2005, discussing your challenges, and I think it was about 2005 that the Portland School Department finally announced that they had 64 different languages at home for their students, and this is completely off topic in a way, but I feel like it has to be said every time a topic like this comes up. We are in a series of chaotic missteps when it comes to immigration and the way that asylum seekers, legal immigrants, and others are treated. And New England has got one of the worst records in the United States. The Boston Office of Immigration, which is where these matters are processed, has got the least favorable number of findings in favor of people that stood in danger of their lives when they fled with nothing but the clothes on their back. And those people are being routinely denied immigration status in the United States in the Boston office, and it's a complete disgrace. And thankfully, it is now under investigation, and I hope that the harshest of remedies are applied. But that having been said, it makes the lives of the people that you folks are trying to help even more difficult than they already are, and they are. It's miraculous that so many of them have reached our shores. So, that having been said, obviously you might have an idea how I think I'm going to vote next time we meet. So, and with all respect to what Commissioner Gordon has said, he's absolutely right in so many ways. But it seems to me like this might be an exception that probably won't be repeated very often, but exists for today.
Just briefly, I would wholeheartedly support our funding of this. After the initial reading, I had some doubts like we all did. But I think this goes right to the heart of what the ARPA money is for. It reaches out to a group in our society that will benefit greatly from a little bit of funding, and that we can make a difference, a generational difference for this small group of people, but then they will make a difference for others as well. So for all those reasons, I'm fully behind the funding of this proposal.
Okay, if there is any other questions, I call for vote. All those in favor?
All right?
Aye. As all those opposed? 3-1. So, our second reading will be in September. That's September 19th, is that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll see you then.
Okay, we'll see you.
Thanks again for your time
Okay,
here.
thank you. The next item is, Jim, I'll give that to you, which is item 220904.
Yes, this item is for a purchase of a Liebert 20-ton pump refrigerant economizer purchase. In a sense, it's an air handling machine. And it's for the communications department. As you're aware, the communications department received ARPA funds for an expanded footprint of their floor area up there, and really, it's a expanded floor area that matches the original building design back in 2004, 2005, when the facility was first looked to be constructed. We are in the process of finalizing plans, and we're working with the architects, and we find that, as you can all imagine, the bidding is going to be questionable in terms of, one, cost, and two, timeline. But we do have one bit of information, and that is that these air handling units are a year out. And so if we're able to order the air handler today, that means we most likely will get it in August of 2023. And we're hoping that if we send out a bid and we can get a timeline for doing the work sometime November, December 2023, bleeding into the early months of 2024. So we're asking you, before we even go out to bid for the project, to purchase this air handler so that we can start the clock on getting that here to Cumberland County, and hopefully get it here by this time next summer. And so we're kind of peeling off one of the most expensive parts of the project and buying that first, and then we will go through the bid process for the construction within the facility and the hooking up of this air handler in the next couple of months. And you'll see the award of bid request probably sometime in November or December. So my ask is to award a purchase of the Liebert DSE 20-ton pump refrigerant economizer in the amount of $155,494.59, and then add the extended warranty of $8,500, bringing the total award to $163,994.59, and it will be funded by ARPA. So this is a sole source bid. We're going right through the company for this product. So thank you.
Steve, Commissioner Woods.
Yeah, would you explain what this unit does?
This unit is the unit that brings in fresh air into the facility. It will either heat that air or cool that air. Right now, it is a gigantic mechanical device that sits right in the middle of the building. This unit will be placed outside, giving us the square footage space to expand the floor area.
And it says, so this is just refrigerant?
It is a new style HVAC unit that is on refrigerant. It's cutting edge design.
So does it do heat in the wintertime and
Yes.
cooling in the summertime?
Yes.
Do we have any other discussion? Do I have a motion?
Passage.
Second.
That's despite that 59 cents, I'm still worried.
Yeah, really. So the total then is this 163 and then another 8,000 on that? Or-
No, it's 155,494 plus the 8,500, so a total of 163.
Okay, gotcha.
And 59 cents.
And you can't forget that 59 cents.
I'd go for 164.
Is that call for a vote? Is all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes four. The next item is under new business. It's 22-095, the appointment of the Finance Committee for members for a 3-year term. Yes, Jim.
I move to appoint Kate / Snyder, Kate Merchant Snyder, who's mayor of Portland, and Andrew Zarro, who's the city councilor for the city of Portland, to represent District 5.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Commissioner Gordon?
Well, afterwards, I'd like to have Jim explain the process of getting people to the caucuses.
Is that call for vote? All those in favor of these two? Okay, your question was what the vendor explained to how to get people to come?
He in fact sent communications to the managers of the communities, asking if they would supply somebody, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Yes, all town managers received a letter approximately 30 to 45 days from today's date being the day that you held the caucus, asking them to pass the request along to their elected officials, because only elected officials, whether they're considered select board members or councilors, are eligible to serve on the county's finance committee. I should say that only District 1 managers did not receive the notice because the District 1 commissioner fulfilled his two-spot obligation last year and has two people in serving a 3-year term right now. So the notice went to Districts 2, 3, 4, and 5. This afternoon, we had a caucus every 15 minutes from 4:30 to 5:15, and the results of that caucus was that District 5 brought forth two individuals, both city councilor and a mayor for the city of Portland. So we will we will get Mayor Snyder and Councilor Zarro sworn in, as the other 5 that sit on the Finance Committee have been, and we will start working on dates starting in September, probably right through October, maybe even into early November, for meetings for the Finance Committee. This year is going to be a busy year for the Finance Committee because, as the commissioners are aware, we are working on a 6-month budget and a 12-month budget, transitioning the county from a calendar year general fund budget to a fiscal year July to June general fund budget. So, going to be a busy year with a lot of twists and turns, I believe.
So, could I ask Mr. Ganley, I was walking around with the impression that through some combination of our county charter and the state statute, now that there are still some vacancies on the Finance Committee, that councilors have the authority, commissioners have the authority to propose people that they might be able to recruit to serve on the Finance Committee. Going forward.
I think that is allowed, yes.
I thought so, yeah, thanks.
Do you know, well, how many more would that we need from each of the district? Is it one more? Because I know I need one. Steve, do you need, you need 2?
No, who has Cumberland? Do you have Cumberland? You have one.
One. So I need 1, Steve needs 1, and Commissioner McCallum?
1.
1, so we need 3 more. Okay. So we'll go out there and try to find some bodies.
They're rare, though, they have to be elected. We
know,
we
that's
might want
the
to try to change the charter to broaden that a little bit.
But I think it's also state statute.
Yes,
It's also good, yeah.
State statute, well, actually, a charter would sometimes override a state statute. There's a statute that says that.
Well, that's a topic for another day. Okay. That concludes the meeting part. Now we have comments from the county manager.
A few items. Before I forget, I'm going to ask Travis, I won't take the thunder out of it since you did all the hard work, if you want to report out on the radio project.
You might remember a couple of months ago, I talked about how we were going to apply for a federal earmark to support updating all of the communications equipment that we use at the RCC. And our goal was that if we were successful in earning the earmark, we would update the home base equipment and also all of the mobile radio equipment used out in the field. We would own it, issue it to participating departments, so everybody would be on the same standard. New equipment, much more reliable, more methods of intercommunication. If we won the earmark, which was a big if, we applied last year and didn't get it. Found out last week that we were selected. So Senator King put our application forward. Senator Collins is the chair of the committee that reviewed it, and they let us know that we're getting the whole $1 million written into the federal budget, which is very exciting. Of course, nothing is official until they take the votes, but I've been given assurances by our delegation that those are lines that they don't touch. Earmarks past budgets. So it's very likely that we'll have that full $1 million available for that project when the federal budget goes into effect in October.
Right.
Good job. Good job.
A lot of hard work from Travis on getting this off the ground the first time and then spinning it around to get it out there again. And then following up with our delegation to make sure that it was hitting the right tracks for success. So thank you, Travis.
Thank you very much.
And a big improvement in the RCC operations.
We have two new hires here in Cumberland County. The first is, as everyone knows, Faye Lupi left us just a few weeks ago. Jen Annis, a former employee of Through These Doors, has come to join as the manager of the Domestic Violence Intervention Program here in the county. So we welcome Jen on board. And just last week, I had the opportunity to offer Deputy HR Director Amy Jennings the director's position here in Cumberland County. Don Brewer, who was the former director, left us in the end of June, and we finally got the new HR director on board, and now Amy has the task of finding a new deputy. But wish both of them well and good luck, and it's great to have both of them on our team. They're fantastic hires. I'm very happy that they're both with us. Lastly, I just want to reiterate that the cross-insurance arena budget for the July of 21 to June 22 budget came in positive $33,000 in the black. That is the first time that we've met budget since renovations. And so staff up at the cross-insurance arena did a fantastic job this year and really pumping a lot of events through and people through that building. And so I guess the bar is raised high now. The expectation is going to be yearly. So with that, I'll end. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to the executive staff. Ms. Alex?
Yeah, just as everyone alluded to, we've just sort of started sort of the tip of the iceberg on the budget process, and I'll just throw out that it is definitely going to be slow going this year. It's that combination of us having a half year and a full year budget, which adds a ton of complexity, but we're also just seeing a lot of other factors. This in many ways is our first, somewhat return to normal after the COVID pandemic budget process, and we're seeing a lot of things that have changed. We're seeing some areas where some costs have gone down, office supplies, like just people aren't going through as much, but obviously inflation as well is affecting other areas. So there's just a lot more lines moving around. There's been a lot of staff turnover, so that's changing a lot. And revenues are sort of showing themselves as what the new normal of those looks like. So I just expect more movement this time around, not necessarily one way or the other than typical. So I think there's going to be a lot of moving parts all the way through the fall on this one, more than most years.
Travis, would you have anything else?
The only other note, we talked last month about a study regarding regional fire services. So an RFQ has been drafted and released. I've shared it with about a dozen national firms who do that exact work and spoken to a few of them. So hopefully we'll get some really good applicants in the next month or so. We'll pull together a committee of chiefs and managers who want to do interviews, and we'll continue to move forward on that project.
Well, Catherine? You're all set? Nothing? Okay. Now, comments from the county commissioners. Commissioner Cloutier.
My only comment really has, kind of bounces back to Alex, the year-and-a-half budget kind of converts you from being kind of a prediction specialist and technician into being a prophet, because what's going to happen to the budget in the spring of, I think it's 2024, is going to have to be anticipated, and that's a challenge that is going to test your skill set, I'm sure, and it's quite clear to me that we're going to need to have some flexibility in that budget that we wouldn't ordinarily expect or want to try to develop. So good luck with all of that is what I would say. And so other than that, I'm trying to stay out of the heat and haven't really managed that very well so far. But I'm sure February will take care of that.
Commissioner Gordon.
I don't have anything.
Commissioner James.
Just very briefly, as we get into the, as Jim alluded, as we're getting into the dog days of August in the summer, go out there and enjoy yourselves and your families these last few weeks. Let's all be conscious that the school will be starting here in 3 short weeks in all of our communities, so let's be watching out for the students on the bus runs and in your communities, and the excitement of supporting our community children in their academic pursuits, in their sport pursuits, and their extracurricular pursuits, which will bring another round of excitement, work, and anxiety for parents and students combined. But otherwise, enjoy August, and we look forward to seeing you at our meeting in September.
And I don't have any comments. If that concludes our meeting, I have a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.